All right, guys. So yesterday, something very interesting happened to me. I had a family reunion. I had a bunch of my family members come up here to Chicago from different parts of the United States, and I saw people that I haven't seen in 20 years. And one of the most interesting things that came out of that is I spoke to a family member of mine who is black and is a Gen Zer. They're in that age demographic. And we spoke about politics. And I just simply asked this person, how do you feel about Nick Fuentes? And to my surprise, he said, I like him. And I watch him and I listen to him. And I was like, wow. So I decided I might as well make a video reacting to this interesting video that I found on YouTube. And I will make sure to put the link to this guy's content down in the description of this video. But he made a video called Why Nick Fuentes is So Popular with Gen Z, and looked like a very interesting video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it for you guys, and then I'm going to react to it and give my opinions. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of nuggets from the Gen Z family member that I spoke to yesterday, who told me that he too is a fan of Nick Fuentes. So yes, it's confirmed. I've had people in my comments saying stuff like, there are black groypers out there. And it turns out you're right, there are. One of them happens to be a family member of mine. He is a black groyper and he's proud of it. And I'm like, wow, I didn't judge him. You know, I didn't chastise him or say, I just wanted to know why. I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not going to chastise somebody for how they feel, you know, like I just want to know why. And he shared some interesting stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this video, and then I'll kind of intertwine a little bit of my conversation with my Gen Z family member and also my own personal opinion. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
Nick Fuentes calls himself a Christian. He says that he wants a Christian nation, and he even claims that he's the reason that Christ is King went viral.
This is God's country. This is Jesus's country.
We want God back in society.
Okay, but that's not the deeper reason why he's become one of the most influential figures among millions of young men, despite being banned on most platforms. The reason why is because he's tapped into what makes them angry, turning their legitimate concerns into purpose. And that's also why so many see him as not just powerful, but dangerously powerful. And this is where this story gets dark. So in this video, we're gonna look at why so many young men resonate with what he says, and why it will inevitably make their lives far worse, not better.
I'm a monster. There's a million monsters then, because they love my show and they're pissed off and they'll follow me into battle.
Those who are trying to dissuade others from Fuentes point to the controversial things that he says.
Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right.
And so women exist basically, in my opinion, on a lower plane. You know, you would never say that a dog is like dumber than a person. You would say that like a dog could never conceive of language. Like the same thing with women. Women don't have the same category of mind as a man.
Only to find themselves surprised when they realize that his fans aren't bothered by it. In fact, for them, him saying those things only makes him more credible. Rather than bigotry, what they hear is courage.
I told my parents, I'm like, Mom, Dad, the Holocaust didn't happen.
But there's a reason he's become one of the most influential voices among Gen Z men, which makes a lot more sense when you consider the world that they grew up in. Older generations found their value in the American dream. Get a job, take care of a family, and be proud to be an American. That story gave them both value and stability. But for Gen Z, that story doesn't exist anymore. The median age for Gen Z is only 20 years old, with the preceding 5 years being the years that you start to discover who you are and what you're doing with your life. And for them, those 5 years started in 2020, with years of lockdowns, riots, outrage, and political chaos. These were arguably the most chaotic years in recent memory, leaving Gen Z's coming-of-age years to feel like the end of the world. On top of that, they also grew up in what some call the woke era, when every movement seemed to be about giving a voice to someone who's been silenced. LGBTQ parades told sexual minorities, you matter. The BLM protests told Black Americans, you matter. The Me Too movement told women, you matter. And some of that was good. Those messages felt overdue for millions of people. But as that story took over, it created a new story. One where young straight white men felt like they were cast as the villains who were creating these victims. The message that they received was that value comes from being a victim, and that they were the only group left that couldn't be one. So when they try to speak out against what they perceived as the injustice in these movements, they risk being confirmed as oppressors and could be canceled.
The goal of cancel culture is to make decent.
Okay, so this basically makes sense, and it ties into what I kind of talked about in my last video. And it's funny because the last video that I made, I basically said that I guess a lot of Nick Fuentes followers feel that there is an attack on straight white men, especially young white men, and that white men are painted as evil and oppressors and colonizers. And a lot of these young white men are like, but wait a minute, I didn't do anything. I've never assaulted any women. I've never pillaged or enslaved anyone. Like, I didn't do anything, but I'm being like branded in the media as like this awful, terrible person. Like, oh, white men are evil. White men are horrible. And the funny thing is, I actually said in my last video that I didn't agree with that. But who am I to say that? Because at the end of the day, I'm not a white male. And it was interesting because I had a lot of comments from white men who were like, well, of course, you're not going to understand it, Echoes, but this is how we really feel. There were literally white Gen Z men in my comments saying, this is literally how I feel. I feel like we as young white men are being attacked. And I think this guy put everything into perspective pretty perfectly. There is a movement for Black Lives Matter and Me Too and LGBT and all that. There really isn't a movement for, dare I say, white men rights, I guess. I mean, you know, all these other movements are fighting for women's rights or black rights or whatever. So I guess part of this is a movement for young white men rights. But the interesting thing, which I'm going to be interested to see if he touches on in this video, is my black family member, who is not a young white man, still loves Nick Fuentes. And what he told me is that he likes Nick Fuentes because he's just searching for truth, somebody who's unapologetic about it, and somebody who actually wants to do something. And I would kind of compare this to Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate had a lot of young men who were gravitating to him. And I think his movement mostly died out. He's basically just an internet personality. He's not this great, amazing figure who was going to build a movement. And I think a big reason why his popularity eventually died out is because he never actually did anything. He never actually brought any real transformative change for young men. He's just a guy on the internet talking who just happens to be entertaining. From what I understand from the family member that I spoke to yesterday, Nick Fuentes is actually trying to really do something and build a movement. Will he succeed in that? I don't know, but this is the information that I was told. Let's keep going.
Innocent Americans live in fear of being fired, expelled, shamed, humiliated, and driven from society as we know it.
So they stopped talking, and the frustration started to build up. And then all of this, the instability, the chaos, the silence about where they fit in, it left a lot of young men feeling ashamed, unneeded, unwanted, and unseen. Okay, so now think about what that does to the idea of the American dream for them. Financial uncertainty made work feel hopeless. Me Too made relationships feel too risky. And if the only political eras that you knew were the Trump and Biden eras, then having faith in our government seemed obviously absurd. So when everything felt unstable and out of reach and the anger continued to build, that's where Nick Fuentes stepped in. Not as the cause of the crisis, but as one of its most dangerous symptoms. Fuentes was able to give them meaning through rebellion, a way to turn isolation into belonging and shame into strength.
I'm an incel. I am a proud incel. And when I'm good and ready, I'll get married. I'll still be an incel, though.
Incel is a term for someone who's involuntarily celibate. So when he says that he's a proud incel, it tells his audience that they don't have to feel shame for not being able to attract a partner either. In fact, they can be proud of it. He also gave them a way to turn their shame into purpose and strength.
Well, it kind of doesn't matter if you're multiplying out in the periphery, but people don't want to hear that because they want to feel like, they want what they want to be the thing that is honorable. And it's like, I don't think we really need to be giving any awards out because you married a woman and had kids. We need to go at the center, and that requires real dedication, real sacrifice that, yes, might involve actually not having kids. Is sacrificing a family life different than dying in a war for a political outcome? I don't think so.
And he becomes even more attractive to his audience since he refuses to grant value to the people that the woke era elevated. He essentially tells his followers, you've apologized long enough. You don't need to feel guilty for being white, male, or Christian. And for men being tired of being blamed, it felt freeing.
We have reached, by the way, the pinnacle of fake outrage. And she wants to call me out? That's what she texted me. She goes, I'm calling you out. And my response to that is...
You know what? It makes a lot of sense, too, because one of the things that I think we as men, for all the men who are watching, know is that the world does not really care about men, especially average regular men. The world cares about famous men and rich men and well-known men, but just the average regular Joe, the world does not care about those types of men and their feelings. There's this like old saying that, women and children will always be loved, but nobody really cares about men kind of thing. And it makes sense now because not only is he speaking to the political side of how young men feel, but he's also speaking to the relationship side. And that ties me into another thing, which this guy did allude to in the video. Another thing that my family member told me also is that a lot of people in Gen Z feel like they have no hope of achieving the American dream. Like prices are out of control. Everybody's got crazy debt. The income, the income wealth gap is atrocious. Like wages have not kept up with the rising cost of living. And so a lot of Gen Zers pretty much have already accepted that they're not going to be rich or well off or whatever. They're probably going to struggle for most of their lives. Probably going to work to the day that they die because they're not going to have enough in retirement because they just don't make enough money to put away for retirement. And again, this is the conversation that I have with this family member. And also, they're probably never, ever going to be able to buy a home. And it looks like Nick Fuentes is literally like the mouthpiece for these people. That's basically what he is. He's basically the mouthpiece for a lot of these young men. He's speaking on how a lot of these young men feel, regardless of the consequences. That's kind of what I'm getting from this whole thing.
You have no right to call me, and maybe it's time for you as a woman to sit down and shut the up. That's me, a man. This is me, a man, telling you, a woman, to sit down and shut the up before you call out anybody else. Sit down and shut the up. I'm so sick of it. White people are every single bit justified in being racist.
Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. Instead of directing his frustration towards the chaos itself, he gives them targets like Jews, women, immigrants, progressives, and even the government.
You have alienated us. You have ignored us. You don't listen to our concerns. We have been left behind.
He tells them that these groups stole their country, their families, and their futures, which ended up giving his fans purpose in having opposition. Eventually, he ended up giving them belonging that could be built on shared blame and resentment.
Why is anyone married?
I mean, honestly, it's the women. It is Israel. It is the Israeli government, and on some level, it is the Israeli people.
Okay, now remember how I said earlier how the younger generations often see his most controversial statements as courageous rather than bigoted? Well, that's one of the strongest parts of his brand. He gives them a new moral high ground: defiance.
All of the realest niggas in history were virulent anti-Semites and racists. George Washington, racist. Abraham Lincoln, racist. Christopher Columbus, racist. Jesus split the veil. His parting gift is that he tore the veil covering the Holy of Holies and shook the earth.
Every banned live stream, every banned account becomes proof of persecution, which gives his fans a sense of being part of it when people blame them for their beliefs and what they say. They refuse to be silenced for saying what they think and for asking provocative questions. Rebellion becomes righteousness. Ultimately, this has led to Fuentes' vision of creating a new America, one that doesn't favor the woke minorities, but recenters on white identity as the true America.
We want the nation to be strong. And yes, by the way, we want the country to be majority white. JD Vance is fat and ugly, but it gets better. JD Vance is fat and ugly and has an Indian wife who is the daughter of immigrants, and his kids are all brown. I want groypers to go to Yale, go to Stanford, go to Harvard, infiltrate the government. We need the smartest young people to get jobs at the Pentagon, at the Department of War, at DHS. Yes, at the CIA. We need to...
Yeah, so this guy is legit trying to actually do something. He's literally telling his fans to infiltrate parts of the government so he can basically take over from within. That's basically what he's saying. So, yeah, that's different than some of these other guys, like an Andrew Tate, who's like, join my $50 a month subscription service and I'm going to teach you how to be a man. It seems like this guy is a lot more serious and really means what he says and actually wants to do something, as opposed to just being one of these regular grifters who just blows up online and tries to find a way to grift their audience, which, by the way, another interesting thing, does this guy have a paid service? I wonder if he does. I don't know if he does, but it'd be interesting if he had some sort of paid group, or, all these guys, these online personalities, they always have some sort of $100 a month subscription, some sort of course, so I can teach you how to be a man, teach you how to get women. I wonder if this guy has that or not. I suspect he probably doesn't, but I really don't know.
Young guys like that, a new generation, to rise through the ranks in the security state, because personnel is policy. Only if we actually control those levers, only if our guys control those levers, do we actually see change.
Okay, but here is where the mask finally slips off. He gives his followers the vision of taking back the country and punishing the evildoers who messed up this country to begin with.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty, straight up.
Ultimately, he offers them a tribe that promises identity, purpose, and stability. And together, that tribe is called the Groypers, which is an army of young men who can finally feel like they belong. He doesn't actually give them any of those things. They just don't realize it yet. And ultimately, his advice will only keep them from getting what they truly want. There's just too many critical problems. But before we get into that, we have to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video.
Oh God, the sponsor. Anyway, I just wanted to play a little bit of that. I'm not going to play the whole video. Again, the link to the entire thing will be in the description. If you watch this entire video and you're like, hey, I want to finish the rest of it, you can literally click the link in the description to this guy's video, and you could just go to 9 minutes and 18 seconds, and then you can watch the rest of it if that's what you want to do. But yeah, just wanted to give some of my thoughts and opinions on this entire thing, and just a little bit of what I spoke to with my family member yesterday regarding Nick Fuentes and the fact that he actually likes the guy. So yeah, anyway, that's today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.